Do you believe what you read in the newspapers? Some of you will remember the old Yes Minister joke. I brief, you leak, he breaks the Official Secrets Act. Day after day, we read in the papers that the government is thinking of doing this, that friends of so-and-so have said that. Is it true, or is it all made up? Have these journalists spoken to these mysterious friends or sources close to, or do they just sit in their offices, no longer in Fleet Street, thinking, if I write this, I could set the cat amongst the pigeons, and then ring up a couple of their friends in other newspapers and say, have you heard this? And it's all invention. Well, I know the answer. I know how it works because I was involved in it for 14 years. And the thing to remember is that the reputation of the political correspondents is their gold ticket. They never make things up. It's not to say they don't sometimes get the wrong end of the stick. Of course they do. It's not to say that sometimes they are told things that the people telling them know to be untrue because the person telling them is spinning. But the political correspondents of the Times, the Guardian, yes, the Guardian, the Daily Mail, Sky News, the BBC, simply don't make things up. So where do these stories come from? How do you decode it to work out the level of seriousness, of credibility of the source? What is a friend? Who is a friend? Who are the sources close to? Well, sometimes it will be the principal, him or herself, that sometimes you will read that friends of Jacob Rees-Mogg have said X, and actually that friend is Jacob Rees-Mogg, that I have said this thing, but I don't want it to be formally attached to my name. Friends means somebody genuinely close to the person. In political terms, if it's a minister, it usually means a special advisor. In my career, if my special advisors ever briefed people, they would do so with my specific authority. The principal knows that this is being done. Only on one occasion did I read that friends of mine had said something that I strongly disagreed with. It was actually a criticism of the then Chief Whip, who I worked very closely with, Mark Spencer, and was shocked that somebody was quoting me as being critical of him. And I spoke to my special advisors and said they must never allow criticisms of this kind to occur again, though they said it wasn't them, so I never found out who it was. But friends usually means somebody genuinely close to the minister, has access to the information, and who has been authorized to do it. Likewise, sources close to indicate somebody very close to the principal. It doesn't mean that people's friends who they meet in the pub have picked this up. It doesn't mean that their great aunt has heard something and has rung up the newspapers. It means somebody within the professional arc of Whitehall is giving the briefing. Likewise, when you read a cabinet minister has said, that will be a cabinet minister. I was very careful about this. I rarely gave off-the-record briefings for the simple reason that I speak in quite a particular fashion. And I did once do this. I gave an off-the-record briefing to a newspaper. And when I read it the next morning, I thought, well, the only person who could possibly have said that was me. So I might as well have put my name to it. But that's not always true. So when people give these briefings, when cabinet ministers give these briefings, they are real, and the newspapers will describe them accurately without giving away precisely who they are. And this is a discussion you as the politician have with the journalist. How would you like to be described? Do you want to be called a cabinet minister? Do you want to be called a member of the government? Do you want to be called a senior conservative? At what level do you want the information to be fed out? Obviously, the more willing you are to indicate the reality of your knowledge, the better it is for the newspaper. So their hierarchy is sources close to the Prime Minister. an approved briefing from Downing Street, but not named as the Prime Minister. That's the sort of best you can get. You then work the way down and you get a senior Labour Party figure said. And that's obviously of less significance, less power. But all of them will be accurate in terms of their sourcing. So you now look at what's been happening last week, perhaps in a different light. When you hear that Downing Street says, that doesn't mean Larry the cat. That means somebody in Downing Street who is generally, if not specifically, authorised by the Prime Minister to speak on behalf of the government. As it happens, every day there is a lobby where lobby journalists speak to the Prime Minister's spokesman. That's usually put in the terms of the Prime Minister's spokesman has said, but the Prime Minister's spokesman is also authorised to say things to journalists individually and privately, and will be quoted as number 10 sources or potentially sources close to the Prime Minister. It is possible that the Prime Minister has not authorised a particular briefing, but he has certainly given the authority to people to do those briefings. They don't just make it up, and they don't just freelance, and the journalists are too serious-minded to take some freelancer or some chancer or to make it up. So when we now hear that no such briefings were given about the Prime Minister's leadership, his willingness to fight for it, and attacks on Wes Streeting having nothing to do with Downing Street, we know that is not true. I don't know how much you like the BBC, but Chris Mason, who had this story, would not in a million years have made it up, nor would Pippa Creer at The Guardian. Why do I mention those two? Because they're not my political view of the world. The BBC, we know, is lefty, and The Guardian is openly lefty. I think Chris Mason's perfectly independent, so I don't want to malign him. But they are both serious journalists who wouldn't make it up. Those stories came from Downing Street on the authority, if not the specific knowledge of the Prime Minister. Then you read stories relating to Wes Streeting. Now, he took to the airwaves himself, so a lot of it came from him directly. But you heard friends of Wes Streeting were saying other bits and pieces, filling in some of the blanks, painting the canvas, so to speak. Again, you know that was actually Wes Streeting. Possibly not him directly, possibly him directly. Most of these senior journalists will have the direct telephone numbers of most of these senior figures and will be able to ring them or text them or WhatsApp them for their views. And as I say, will agree how they then refer to the person concerned. So when you see friends of Wes Streeting, you know that it's very, very close to him, even if it's not him. Why am I saying all this? What is the point of this little recording? Well, it's that many people read the newspapers and think, oh, that's all made up. Actually, politicians pretend it's made up when they don't like it. So if you're a backbench MP and you're going out to defend the government, you say, oh, well, that's just tittle-tattle. That's just made up by the papers. But it's not. And I found this out during the Brexit years. I was being told one thing by the government. The government was saying Brexit meant Brexit. You remember the Theresa May years. And I would speak to people on the Times, most particularly as it happens, Sam Coates, now at Sky News. And Sam would say to me, the government's actually not doing this, it's doing that. And I'd say, no, that can't be right. I've been absolutely assured that it's doing what it said it would do. And Sam would say, no, we've been briefed. We've been told every single time the Times was right and what I'd been told wasn't true. The government actually is more interested in getting its line out to the newspapers and to the media more generally than it is to its own backbenchers. So you can trust the journalists to report accurately what they're told. The information turns out to be untrue. That's because the government's changed its mind. It was flying a kite. It's been embarrassed. But don't shoot the messenger. As always, thank you for watching.